I'm going to ask a general question about what do you feel is the responsibility of the Clone Wars crew, you, George, the crew, to the existing expanded universe? And maybe maybe I'm using the word. I don't want to put you on the spot when I use the word responsibility. Maybe I'm just fishing for a better word.
I mean, for me, the most important thing, and it was coming into this job, and I've said it before, and this just applies always and universally. What I guess George would call success at this job, and I think why, I enjoy working on the show so much, how we built this crew, the show itself is all based on one very simple piece of knowledge I have, which is that Star Wars was created by George Lucas. It is his universe. And I respect that, period. There are a lot of things that I would, get left to my own devices, have done differently, even on the Clone Wars. But that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to bring to the audience the most faithful, accurate Star Wars, story I can that George Lucas hands down to me directly, and get it as close to what he wants it to be as possible, which with, his unlimited vision, which he can create, boundless landscapes and planets and people and aliens, it's very difficult to meet those expectations. So that's our biggest challenge. Having grown up when I did for the past 30 years as a Star Wars fan, I am aware of, a lot of EU stuff, starting with, I would believe the Timothy Zahn novels were like the first big thing, the Heir to the Empire, that I read. And I was like, wow, this, I'm reading this and this feels like it and this is cool. And I liked Thrawn, and, I thought he was a cool character in that he didn't have Force abilities. And I thought that's a great change, that we're not just repeating somebody else that, is the next Darth Vader. I thought that was a great decision, story-wise. So, I feel that my responsibility is always to, when George and I are talking story very early on, and when he brings up ideas and says, I'd like to do this character, or, I saw this and I like this, or I always wanted to explore this, or I had a few ideas about this, I say, well, here's all this stuff. And I'll take it to him, just because I never ever assume that he knows all that EU stuff, because it's huge. There's tons of it, and I don't know what he knows or what he doesn't know. So I take it to him, and we look over it, and then he'll make a decision. The creator of the Star Wars universe will make a decision on whether or not that's the path he wants to go, and then I know that leads to the inevitable question, which is, well, isn't that all guided? But I think some stuff you're looking at, goes back a very long time when it was created. Mm-hmm. And as an artist, what you want to create now currently can be different. And when it's not committed to screen in the form that Star Wars always is, which is a visual medium, action adventure film, I think it's a little more up for grabs, at least it seems so. And some of the stuff in the way we interpret it, I try to do what I can to bring it in to what I know, and what I know a lot of fans, love and respect. And, we try to make it the most exciting thing possible. But at the end of the day, George created Star Wars, and he's got all these reasons why he wants things a certain way or not a certain way, and I abide by that, which I think, for me is really exciting, because it lets me really get into discussions with him about certain things that I've always wondered about when it comes to, EU, or not EU. I mean, if you go back and read Splinters of the Mind's Eye, it's in some way, which I really like that book, but it's amazing in that how much the relationship between Luke and Leia plays out romantically. Knowing what we know now, it's almost literally shocking, but when it was written, it wasn't written with that knowledge. So I think there's always knowledge as fans that we think we have. But what we don't understand is that, George, it's his universe, and he is thinking about it and creating it. And we like to suppose, how it all turns out, because we're so excited, and we're not often patient enough with how things should turn out. I know that just from, helping create the Clone Wars with George. People assume a whole bunch of stuff when images of the Clone Wars get out. and they assume certain characters are doing certain things or certain plots mean certain things. And, I sit there and I'm like, wow, it's like they've got one image. For instance, when Cad Bane was coming out last year, they got one image of this guy, and they've already, told me his whole backstory. I haven't even got a chance to tell to them yet. So, I hope that answers your question as best I can, but it's not something that I think is a negative either. I never see it that way. It has to be a positive.
And that's what I want to.
At the very least, I wish people would embrace it as a positive thing because, it's all storytelling and it is exciting. Right. And yet I understand it as a fan. I understand where people are coming from because it's driven by their passion. So.
Well, and I don't want to belabor the point at all, but I just, as a follow-up, Dave, one of the things that I think really endeared you to fans immediately was not only just your, like you mentioned, passion for Star Wars, but your knowledge of the universe outside of just the films and into the expanded universe. So let me just ask you, as a fan who read the books and read the comics, what are the fans out there supposed to think, or what would you like them to think when they see something on the Clone Wars that maybe twists or turns or sets on its head a concept or an idea that was set forth in the expanded universe? How would you like them to react? What's a positive way? Because you said this should be seen as a positive. So, some of them say, well, it means that I've wasted my time reading this book. What would you say to that?
No, I don't think so at all. And I would say, I have read some of the books, and I enjoy some of the books, and I don't enjoy some of the books. What you find with a lot of EU people is they think what counts is what they like, and what doesn't count is what they didn't actually like as much, But I would never say it was a waste of time. These are all stories within this universe, and they are characters that we like. And, if you enjoyed that story, then you enjoyed that story and the characters and what they were going through. I think, people want everything to fit into a little niche and a tick on a timeline so it gets down to the minute and the second. But I don't know. For me, that's not why I liked Star Wars originally. I liked it because I liked the characters and I liked the story and I liked what Luke Skywalker went through. I liked X-Wings. I liked the look of things. And, for me, I really liked the book Approaching Storm, which was about Anakin and Obi-Wan meeting Luminara and Barathafi. I thought that was a great story. That story is mentioned, I think, in one line in Attack of the Clones, briefly kind of directed to. It's never. So I guess that's validating for it, right? But never is it implicitly stated in the film, nor do those characters really ever cross in the films. So does that mean that never happened, or it does happen? I like the story a lot. I like the story Darth Maul, Shadowhunter, I believe, where he basically a prequel before Phantom Menace. I thought that was great. One of the few things I've ever drawn. I never really drew a lot of Star Wars stuff prior to working on the show, if you can believe that. I think just because I enjoyed it so much, I never really got involved that way. I was doing a lot of my own creative universes and things. But I did actually draw sketches of the Padawan girl described in Darth Maul Shadowhunter because I thought it was a great, really exciting story. I don't know. I can only say that I understand where the strife comes from being a fan. I totally understand it. But I can tell you that I stand, often in the face of it, going right to George and saying, hey, there's this, and he's going to tell me then what he thinks.
Right.
So I'm going to pretty much go with that. And I meet with him all the time and discuss it. The biggest thing for me is the creative people that are making the comic books. I talked to Randy Stradley about it, writing the novels. I've talked to Sue Rustoni and Leland Chee about it. And I totally respect these people. I've been a fan, growing, reading their material. And, the last thing I want to do is say none of what they're doing counts. So, I totally respect them as artists and their creative processes. And they have done a tremendous job telling Star Wars stories and fleshing out characters and making connections. And, the big difference is the amount of connection I have to George is huge compared to how much time they would get. I mean, it's not comparable. So we're way more in the fire. You know, like every Star Wars movie that came out, everyone will sit there and go, a big topic of this is anything from the EU going to get into this, right?
Yeah.
At that point with the films, like when Ayla Secura walked through a shot, you go, oh my gosh, look at that, there she is. And all of a sudden all these flags go up, see, that's real. Now we've got it. And, you know, in the Clone Wars, we're working on a week-to-week basis and very much the same thing. And we're like, so what's going to get into this and what's not going to get into this? And, you know, I guess people feel like that's defining things. But, you know, it's a big task that I've found myself in, you know. Hey, this is Dave Filoni of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you are listening to Rebel Force Radio with Jason and Jimmy.